Hello, welcome to Hand of Fate. Let's talk. I'm sitting down with my main man Piper, and he's here to talk about Hand of Fate. So, Piper, in a nutshell, what the hell is this game? Because it's come out of a bit of left field, really.
Yeah, so this game has just popped up on my radar on the 17th, the day of its full release. And I brought it then in the Steam store. We got like I think 20% off or something like that, so it was $15.99.
Yeah.
And what drew me to it was recently I've been playing a little bit of Hearthstone, and this is a card game, but it's got a bit of a new twist on it. And I was a bit intrigued by it, so I purchased it, and it's really cool. It's a card game, but the main emphasis of it isn't really a card game, which sounds weird.
Yeah.
You get cards and you have to stack your deck, and you are playing an opponent basically.
Yeah.
The same guy the whole way through, and he puts cards into the deck, and in that, then depending on how you pull your cards out, sort of makes the way you go through the level. And the levels, the stack of cards, or might be like 5 stacks of cards. So you might pull a card over where you then have to enter a dungeon, and then you jump into that dungeon, and you start fighting demons and stuff like that. And it was like just a small little platformer.
Okay.
The graphics are fantastic, should I say, on that. Yeah. And it's just a sort of whole new twist on that sort of card genre, but it's a bit like RPG with that role playing type game. You get cards where you have to decide how you're going to tackle people, or like how you're going to speak to people.
Yeah. So it sounds like a sort of a breed between sort of a deck building game and then almost a combat game. Does your cards that you're receiving have an impact on how your character performs in this? It's a 3D fighting arena essentially, isn't it? When you go into these dungeons, there's people around you trying to hit you, and you can actually respond in real time to them.
Yeah, that's correct. Correct, and the combat side's been compared to the Batman series. Is it Arkham Asylum?
Yeah, Arkham City and Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, so which I haven't played, so it'd be really interesting to see it from that person's perspective who has played that. But it is important what cards you choose. So after you progress through levels, you will earn cards, and through those cards you can then choose the type of cards that you put in your deck. That doesn't mean you start with those cards. That just means you have the ability to potentially pull out those cards when you're battling, or when you're turning the next card on the next turn, if that makes sense. So you always start off with the same equipment every time. So you'll always start off with a rusty axe, and that's it. So you then, as you're walking through the level or flipping over the next cards, you're then have potentially, you might meet someone who might be able to give you a shield if you speak to them correctly, or you might see a cave where you might enter, and you might be able to get sword, or you might be able to get gold, or you might be able to get food. As it's quite important to keep your food going. If you every turn or every card you turn over, the move you make on top of it depletes an item of food, so you could die before getting to the end of the deck to face the boss of that level.
And so I've read that there's 13 bosses in total for the single player element of this. Is there any multiplayer aspect to this, or is it, at the moment, is it just a single player game? Bearing in mind it's a full retail game, so it'd have to be a pretty sort of hefty patch if they're going to introduce multiplayer at a later date.
No, I've not experienced any multiplayer in it yet, and I can't see how they would add that element in. I'm sure that there would be a way, but I can't see how they're going to add it. At the moment, they've got that storyline that I was just talking about, or you can unlock what's called the endless mode, so
like a challenge mode of sorts.
So you just consistently keep going until you die. It's not to fight a boss at the end, it's just to keep flipping cards and going through different dungeons, different mazes, different challenges, or meeting different people along the way.
So what's the split between the strategy elements of the game and the actual fighting elements? Is it about 50-50, or are you going to be spending more time flipping the cards and going through your deck, or are you going to be spending more time in the arena fighting various enemies and potentially bosses?
Yeah, so it depends, because you could go back into, say you died on that level and you want to go back and do it. It depends. The card draw is completely random each time, so I've had times where I've met more people where I'm talking to people along the way, or talking to cards, should I say, along the way, and I'm getting through like that, and getting to shops and stuff like that.
Sure.
However, I've had times where I have been ambushed 3 times in a row in that series of cards, and you're then fighting. Or there's, as I said, there's also cards where you can flip over, like, so there's maze elements where you're walking around a maze and there's loads of obstacles to avoid and to jump over and to run past before it takes you out. So it has got a nice split, and it's consistently varying it up, so you're never playing the same level twice exactly the same way. The dealer will always put in the same cards from his side of things, so you know what to sort of expect, or what sort of strategy to try and take into that level. If you died the first time and you see that you need to take in more of an armor sort of strategy, because you know you're going to get a lot of punishment, or whether you need to take in something that might give you a lot more food because you need to have a lot more turns and stuff like that. So you can then sort of depict the way you want to go through that strategy, but it will always be different every single time.
So you're at the mercy of whatever card turns over, and that'll fling you into a certain situation depending on what's flipped over at the time. Yeah,
exactly. And then it puts you into situations where it's asking you to pick between a couple of different choices, and then that choice then affects whether you get a certain amount of reward, or maybe a certain amount of punishment, or that choice may even give you it potentially pulls up 4 cards, and where you might have 3 is success and 1 is failure, and then it turns them over and you have to select that card, and if you get a success card, you get the reward from it. If you hit the failure card, you get a failure card, or so you get a punishment card.
Penalty, okay, so one question that will spring to mind for most people is obviously it's got a 3D sort of fight element to it, but is it a little bit of a Hearthstone rip-off?
No, it's completely different to Hearthstone.
Cool.
I brought it because I thought it was going to be more like Hearthstone, and I'm quite enjoying it at the moment. But it's a completely different ball game. It's more of a structured way to get through. It's levels. It feels like a platform game in the story mode with cards. And you're consistently trying to get through those sort of platform levels, because you might go through a set of 4 or 5 cards, and when you get to the end, it might say you now jump on a ride to the next section, and you're not fighting the boss at the end of that. You might have to go through like 4 or 5 different stacks of cards before you get to the level where the boss is on.
So it offers something completely different to Hearthstone, which I think is good. But it's interesting that the enticing part of Hearthstone drew you in, and now you've managed to get a completely different and unique experience out of it. But I think we'll draw that to a close. Thanks for spending some time with us here to tell us about Hand of Fate. It is out on the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and also on Steam for the PC and Mac. Thanks for sitting down with us, Piper. We've enjoyed your company, and we'll speak to you soon. The rest of you guys, make sure you like, subscribe and comment, but it's game over for now. Thanks very much for your time, and ta-da.